All right, welcome everyone. Good morning. This is our practical probate skills training, or as it was billed, Probate, You Can Do It. It's wonderful to see so many people this morning, and I am so excited to work with folks and get started. So, advancing to the next slide. All right. So I am Erin Agnew. I'm a staff attorney at Philadelphia VIP on our homeownership team. And I am going to be presenting today, working with Mike Jones, who can introduce himself if he would like to.
Hello, everybody. Most of you have interacted with me at some point. I'm Mike Jones, senior staff attorney here at VIP. Thank you very much for being here. That's the most you'll hear from me, I hope.
All right, so we are going to walk through VIP's history and mission, talk about the meaning that Tangled Title homeownership cases, probate in particular, has to our community of clients. We're going to talk a little bit about the overall timeline so that you have a sense of how long a probate case will last and the manageable volume of work involved. Look at a case file that you will get when you take on a probate matter with us, and then talk about volunteer support resources and upcoming events. As you all see, we have a robust presentation plan for trainings and community engagements events coming up before the end of the year. So I am so excited to have so many of you here today to get started. So VIP was founded in 1981, initially functioned as the pro bono arm of the Philadelphia Bar Association. That year is important, is the year that federal legal services funding was cut. And so VIP sort of came into being as a way to leverage volunteer attorney power. So none of our clients ever pay for our services. And our mission is to connect Philadelphians who have unmet legal needs with volunteers who can leverage their tremendous training, education, and skills to meet those needs. Civil access to justice is a huge issue, and in homeownership particularly, you're doing amazing work preserving intergenerational wealth and fighting for community sustainability. Philadelphia is a particularly meaningful place to do this work because we have the unfortunate distinction of being the poorest big city in the United States. We have almost a quarter of our population live in poverty as defined by the federal poverty limits. And in Philadelphia, the average median household income is about 3/4 of the national income average. So we have a lot of people with unmet legal needs because they cannot afford to hire attorneys. And of course, poverty charges interest. So oftentimes our clients come to us with sort of extreme home repair needs that are going to be supported by the work that you do. We have supported more than 3,500 Philadelphians in the last year. That's not particular to homeownership. That's across all of VIP's service areas. And that's with 1,500 volunteers. However, we can expand our impact even more and meet even more of those unmet legal needs because there are more than 10,000 attorneys in Philadelphia. And there are ample cases that folks can step into no matter what the time that you have to give to a pro bono matter is. So looking a little more specifically at VIP's clients, we are often referred to as the agency of last resort. We accept referrals from community legal services and Philadelphia Legal Assistance primarily, as well as other partner organizations. And we take those referrals on for clients who are not going to be able to be served at those organizations, either because of income limits or capacity issues. So thinking specifically about Tangled Title, which is the bulk of our probate work, Tangled Title happens when someone is living in a home to which they have a legal claim. They would be recognized in the community as the owner of the home, but the deed is not recorded in their name for any number of reasons, often the cost of probating an estate or the time involved in probating an estate, which of course you have to tackle after a death in the family, which can be a particularly difficult time to access services and organize the documents necessary. In Philadelphia, there are around 14,000 properties that would be considered in a state of tangled title. And our clients usually don't wake up in the morning and come to us just thinking, I should untangle my title today. It would be a good day to get a deed recorded. They usually come to us because they need repairs on their home or are interested in applying for homeownership grants or payment plans for utilities and taxes. And of course, for most of those applications, it is essential, if not at least supportive, to have a deed recorded in your name. So that number of tangled titles represents around 2% of the city's residential properties, which is sort of holding on to around $1 billion in family wealth in the city. So untangling titles, successfully probating cases really does help to move the mark for Philadelphia on the whole, and of course our clients in particular. And as we'll see on the next slide, the lowest income neighborhoods also align almost exactly directly with the neighborhoods that have the highest percentage of titles that are tangled, which means that our lowest income neighbors also usually coincides, as you can see here. We are looking at the neighborhoods with the highest concentration of residents who are Black or non-white. And so this is a racial justice issue as well as a wealth access issue. So knowing what we know about the necessity of probating cases with VIP and stepping in to support untangling those titles for our neighbors in the most need, let's think about how a probate case works when you step in as a volunteer attorney with Philly VIP. So a staff member will reach out to you, or you will select a case that you're interested in working on from our website. And what we ask is that you sort of think about it methodically. We often say probate cases may be long-term representation, but it doesn't mean that it has to be consistent high volume work and representation. They really are quite manageable for any attorney. And we have as many resources as you need to support the process. So the first step is opening the estate, which sort of gets broken down into introducing yourself to the client, reviewing the materials in the case file, and then completing a Tangled Title Fund disbursement request to pay probate filing fees and submitting the petition for probate. We are going to talk about all of this at length throughout the training today. Step 2 is getting our client appointed estate administrator. Once an estate is opened, the client needs to swear an oath of administration. They will leave that appointment with letters of administration, and that becomes the legal passport for a client to act on behalf of the decedent's estate. So once that oath is scheduled, there are a few more steps to take to make sure that the estate administration process is running smoothly, including notifying other heirs that the estate has been opened. Then there is the really important work of actually transferring the property out of the estate and into the client's name. So this involves a little bit of document drafting for folks who are interested in that. We also have a lot of templates available for any sort of deed that you are actually going to be working with. So we ask that you draft a deed transferring from the estate to the client. We have notaries on staff who can support the execution of that deed, or if you work with notaries in your office or other volunteer relationships, then you can rely on those folks. And then we ask that in addition to drafting the deed, you prepare the transfer tax forms that are required, and if necessary, inheritance tax return that the client may need. And that will actually start to move the title into the client's name. Once the deed is recorded, we would consider the case almost at the finish line. We ask that just for proper estate administration, you do a final inventory of assets, file that status report, and then if necessary, get tax, interest, and penalties waived. So we will talk through all of these steps, but this is essentially to show you that you are looking at around 6 months to a year, which is a wonderful time in which to develop a client relationship and be able to really get to know the person you are supporting, answer their questions, make them feel included in the process. But it really is just a few tasks that have to happen really methodically. So when you take a case with VIP, one of the first things you will see is a case summary. You will see the client's relationship to the deceased record owner. You will see the sort of need that the client is presenting with, what they are hoping to accomplish when they get title in their name. And you will see any additional details that will be helpful in sort of structuring your process. Will the client need an inheritance tax return filed? Will they need support with applying to a real estate tax payment plan? Anything like that will be provided to you. You will also get a family tree so that you have a clear picture of any heirs that need to be contacted throughout the process. And we work as hard as possible to make sure that all heirs are either on board or aware of what is happening. And if for any reason at all, by the time you receive a case that is not taken care of, your VIP staff support person will let you know that and be able to support you in navigating that aspect of the case. So when you get that case file, we ask that you take a look at the family tree, take a look at the summary, and just respond to that initial email, letting us know that you can work on it, that you do not have conflicts. And then we will send you a full case file, and we'll take a look at some of the documents that will include. We'll see the last recorded deed to the property. This is important. It's again touching base on clarifying the client's claim to title. We'll see how the property is held by the previous record owner, usually a client's deceased family member, often a lineal upwards family member, parent, grandparent. And we'll also always include the OPA, Office of Property Assessment page. That's important because we will see the value that the home is currently assessed at, as well as the value at the year of death of the decedent. That is the value that you will use to calculate the probate filing fee, and if necessary, in your case, to calculate inheritance taxes. I should also just flag here as we start marching through the documents you'll receive and how you'll use the information in them. Everyone has in their inbox the updated probate training manual that also lives always on our volunteer resource library. So if you get a case file and you're looking through the documents and thinking, I'm not really sure what this valuation is supposed to mean to me, I don't know how to use the legal description in the deed, you can always reference those or schedule a call with the staffer who sent you the case, and they can help you sort of drop into the case and orient yourself. You'll also receive proof of death, even if it is just sort of find a grave marker, obituary, anything like that, for the non-record owner of a property. That is to help confirm for you that our client has a clear claim to title. And although it is really not an issue when recording deeds, if someone predeceased the last living record owner, they should not have to be dealt with. They should not have to have a formal death certificate. Sometimes it's required for a title report, but that will be included if we have that information. Then we will also see very meaningfully the death certificate. We will always ensure that the client or the client either has or is storing in our office an original or certified copy of the death certificate that will be required for probate, but we will include a PDF scan of the death certificate in the file we send to you. Death certificates are a wealth of information that will be useful in every aspect of the probate process. And of course, in helping you understand the family relationship, how the client is taking title. So you'll see, of course, the date of death of the deceased record owner, their marital status, which will be important for ensuring that we draft a clear deed. And oftentimes you will see the informant on a death certificate, as well as the informant's relationship to the decedent. Very frequently, our client is the informant, and that gives us sort of a useful bolstering of their relationship to the last record owner. If there is a will involved in the case, you will also get a copy of the will. You'll see in this case, this will is naming our hypothetical client here as the executrix, executor, administrator of the estate. You'll see that it devises the property to the client and to her sister. However, oftentimes when you have a will, there will be a little bit more work to do around it. So you can see that in the state of Pennsylvania, folks may know this already, that a will to be totally effective and admitted for probate right off the bat should be notarized and signed by 2 witnesses at the same time as it is signed by the testator. When that is not the case, we will either need to get oaths from the witnesses who signed at the time of the execution of the will, or, oh, I'm sorry, I paused. Someone is asking for a live transcription, which is fine with me. Sorry about that. Hopefully that's a useful aid for whoever requested that. I appreciate that. So taking a look at the will, you'll see if additional work needs to be done. And if not, then the will hopefully make the case run exceptionally smoothly. If a will is not notarized or is not signed by 2 witnesses or is in any other way not immediately effective, then the will just need additional oaths submitted with it to probate to prove the identity of the testator or to prove the validity of the signature. In cases where there is not a will, which is very, very often the case, you will also be receiving renunciations at the time that you start prepping the file to actually begin the probate process. When someone passes without a will, of course, the intestacy law takes over, which has flowing along the family tree, the right to claim a legal interest in the property based on your relationship to the decedent at the time of their death. We do as much as we can to gather renunciations from all heirs who may have a legal right to act as the estate administrator. Renunciations have the effect of the heir who has signed it and had it notarized properly, simply disclaiming their right to be in charge of the estate, to act as administrator, and nominating our client usually to step into that role. So these will be provided to you. It is just so you know what it looks like. In the event that you have a will that needs oaths provided with it to attest to the validity of the signature, these are what those oaths look like. Again, if this is necessary in your case, we will help point you to these documents when they do become necessary. So that is a look at the initial file. So with all of that information, we ask that you take care of step 1 of our 4-part process. We are speaking with the client, filling in any gaps in our understanding of the case, ensuring that we understand if the will is effective or will need to be supported by additional oaths, and preparing to submit the petition for probate. When you go to submit a petition for probate, you begin the process online. You can then either continue the process with an in-person appointment at the Register of Wills or continue the process entirely remotely. Either way, you will need to have either originals or certified copies of all of these documents: a death certificate, the decedent's will, and any supporting oaths that may be necessary, renunciations from heirs who have a right to act as as administrator, waiving their right and nominating our client. Client will need a valid photo ID. If they need support with that, then that's something that we usually support with on the front end and make sure that they have that by the time they are sent to you, but sometimes IDs are lost or things happen. We will need a completed petition for probate that is not yet signed by the client. That is very important. The petition for probate will be signed at the time that the oath is administered. And the probate filing fee. When you receive a case from VIP, you should be getting it with the initial Tangled Title Fund application already submitted, which means that your client has already been approved or is in the process of being assessed for approval to pay the costs of administering an estate, including the probate filing fee. So when you go to make that appointment to have the oath sworn, it is just important that you have pre-submitted the probate filing fee request in particular. And we're going to talk about the Tangled Title Fund and how that works with our cases now. So the Tangled Title Fund is something that you'll hear referenced in almost all VIP Tangled Title homeownership cases. It's an amazing resource, and it is a huge asset to the clients who work with us. So the Tangled Title Fund is a grant program funded by the city. It's administered by VIP, and it's specifically for tangled titles. So it is specifically to move titles of homes out of the names of deceased persons into living family members who can continue to manage the home and property. It is assessed by committee, and that committee meets once a month. So you will also get a heads up about the next Tangled Title Committee assessment meeting when you get your case file, so that you have an awareness of when it is the best time to submit those disbursement requests. We prioritize covering the probate filing fee, transfer taxes, which must be paid in order for a property to change title, as well as the principal of inheritance taxes. If your client has inheritance taxes in excess of what will be covered by the Tangled Title Fund, we will make sure that we advise you of that and prepare you to have that conversation with your client. If clients have remaining funds in their total disbursement after those necessary costs are paid, then the Tangled Title Fund can also help to pay for water and real estate tax bill principals and advertising or publication as may be required in some probate processes. Clients are entitled to up to $4,000 of disbursements, and the total disbursement available to that client will be determined at the time of the initial application. So you'll know the amount of funding that you're working with, as well as have a rough evaluation of the costs that the client will need paid for by the Tangled Title Fund. So as I said before, you should always be getting a completed initial application. So you'll know if a client is currently being assessed for funding or if they've already been approved. So all that you will need to do is submit individual disbursement requests. The form is fairly easy to fill out and is linked both on the VIP website and will be included in the email that is sent to you with the full case file. And you just send the Tangled Title Fund application for individual disbursement to the Tangled Title Fund administrator. And then you'll hear back with that determination and know when the check is ready to be picked up or mailed. So this is an example of what an individual disbursement request looks like. You are just confirming the client's income amount, making sure that there are updates to the case if case updates are needed after the initial summary. And then you will just need a signature from you, so you don't have to necessarily send back and forth between the client. and the initial amount that you're requesting with that application. So with your initial application that will be completed on your behalf, you'll also receive a title report. I'm sure that many folks are familiar with title reports, but it is, again, a useful tool and will help to guide the conversations that you have with your client. So a title report will be an analysis of the chain of title, the history of ownership and claims to the property. So you'll see liens, judgments, restrictions from transfer associated with the property, as well as a confirmation of the identity of the last record owner and any other deeds or liens recorded on the property. So you'll also see the legal description of the property, which will be essential when it comes time to draft the transfer deed, and the current real estate taxes that are owed on the property, which again can sometimes be paid off in part or in full by the Tangled Title Fund. We work with title reports in most of our Tangled Title cases. So if you have questions, this is another thing that you can absolutely schedule a call or send an email to your staff support person, and we can walk through the title report with you as well. So with the title report in hand and that initial disbursement request for the probate filing fee handled, you are going to move on to the step where wonderfully, you have your client appointed administrator of the estate. So that will require scheduling the oath of administration, getting those letters of administration, and then beginning the work of actually probating the estate, administering the estate. So when you file for probate, the process begins online. You may already have a login. You can always test your email address and see if an account pops up. If not, you can create the login entirely online. It takes less than 10 minutes. You just need your bar ID as well as an active email address. So you can, as you can see here, start by going the attorney login process and then creating your account or just entering your account information. You will then go to the side menu under your welcome page and click begin new probate. And you'll then enter all of the information that will be entered on the PDF, the sort of what would be a paper probate application. You'll have all of this information across the death certificate, the will, and all of the other documents that are sent to you when you accept a case. Here you can see the full walkthrough of what the online probate application looks like. It is a great idea as you are filling this out if you want to also pull up the PDF and fill out the digital application for probate at the same time. You can confirm that you have the same information and all of the information that you need. And then you can see we're just going through the information about witnesses to a will, if there is a will in a case, and confirming that we've entered all parties in interest. So as I said, you'll also need to submit a PDF petition for probate. You can fill this out at the same time. It is all of the same information. And the second page is actually the oath that will be administered when a client is appointed the administrator, the personal representative of an estate. So when you fill this out, it's a great idea to save it, and before the client signs it, make sure that you either have an appointment set up for the oath online or in person. You can either drop it off in person or coordinate with us to have it sent by certified mail or other secure handoff. After e-filing, you and the client can determine if they are going to schedule a virtual oath or can attend in person. I know some folks have asked about handling probate cases entirely virtually. If that is your need or preference, then make sure that your client is interested in an oath via Zoom, or connect with your VIP staff support person who handed the case off to you. And we can support the client going in person for the oath and sort of be the feet on the ground for that part of the case. Once the oath of administration is issued, the client can then sign the oath page, and they become the personal representative of the estate. You can decide based on your comfort and the client's comfort with technology or with navigating City Hall. It is not taking terribly long for either oath at this time. Usually around a few weeks. In person tends to be a little bit faster. When actually swearing the oath, the client will need to have a valid photo ID. This is the moment those original documents, the original will, death certificate, etc., will actually be handed off. And once the oath is sworn and signed, the client will get the grant of letters of administration. Usually it's around 10 days. And at the time the oath is sworn, it is best practice to either bring a self-addressed stamped envelope so the letters can be sent, or just ask to be notified so they can be picked up in person. So once the oath is sworn, it is time to actually tackle the deed and transferring property out of the estate. This sort of begins the process of actually administering an estate. So we're going to move through this fairly quickly, not because it is not a tremendous amount to tackle, but because if you want a more in-depth training on drafting a deed, we do have a recorded training on the Volunteer Resource Library. And we also are always happy to review copies of deeds, and in fact, ask that you do give us a copy of the deed before you submit it for recording. So estate administration requires that we notify all heirs who have an interest in the estate. Even if there is a will, you'll have to notify intestate heirs. Then we also require an inventory of the estate before the estate is closed out. The inheritance tax return should be filed for the estate if your client has not yet filed that. Oftentimes clients will have. And this is also when we tackle the deed. And before the deed is recorded, transferring property out of the estate, of course, client as estate administrator has the responsibility of settling all debts of the estate. That's something that we usually try to flag in advance and support client with, but periodically it becomes essential to manage debts while we're already sort of in the probate process. So this is an example of one of the sample deed templates that VIP has available. So if you are at this stage and you want to review some templates before you begin drafting one, you can head to the Volunteer Resource Library on our website. It is essentially bringing the legal description from previous recorded deeds and the title report into a new deed. And we ask that before you even consider it partially finalized, you just go ahead and review it with us so that we can support your drafting process. You'll also, with the deed, need to prepare the state and city transfer tax certificates. Most clients will be exempted from actually having to pay transfer tax because of their lineal relationship to the decedent, but they have to be filed and show that relationship and show the zero bill. And if your client is presenting with having inheritance taxes that need to be filed or managed, we do have a guide. It can be provided to clients to start the process on their own, or you can work alongside them through the process of filing. This is just to show what the guide looks like. It's a fairly thorough step-by-step. And then the inheritance tax return itself is not a huge lift. But also, of course, something that we are happy to help you strategize on and finalize. So with the deed drafted and the appropriate tax documents taken care of, you are in the closing period of probating the estate. This will require filing the final inventory of probate assets, filing a status report to close out your representation. And if a client has accrued penalties or interest on their inheritance taxes, simply requesting that waiver, which is often a very satisfying process because you get to sort of lift that off of your client's shoulders. The inventory is the final accounting of the decedent's assets. For most VIP clients, it will be just the property that you are transferring through probate. And it has to be signed by the estate administrator or the personal representative of the estate. So you can see just an example of that. And then the status report closes the estate and ends the volunteer's representations. It is a good idea to provide 2 copies when you do submit this so that you can have one time stamped and keep it for your own records or provide it to the client when you close out your representation with them. And that will conclude your representation. When you get a case, you'll also get a request to file sort of a check-in status report with VIP 6 months into your representation. And then every 6 months after that. And we do ask that you send a closing letter when you are ready to totally conclude your representation. That means that we can log the case as closed on our end and support the client with transitioning away from working with you. It also means that we can give you CLE credits that you may have earned while working on the case. So with that overview, if you are ready to take your first case, what's next? You can always go to our website and either complete our Find Your Pro Bono Match tool, sort of a fun quiz that will help match you with a currently open case that fits your skills, interests, and time schedule availability right now. You also, if you have already completed our volunteer registration form, or if you have already volunteered with us in the past, then you'll periodically get reached out to by a VIP staff member. If you see a case that aligns with your skills and availability and you're interested in taking it, just say yes, and we'll support you with the rest of the process. So when you choose a case, if you are looking on our website, you're ready to take one after today's training. You can always click down and see cases, particularly that are logged as probate, or any other area that you're interested in working in. And of course, when you are filling out your enrollment form, if you feel comfortable and interested in working on probate cases, make sure that you log that, and we will be in touch with you fairly regularly with available cases that align with that interest. When you accept a case, here's an example of the sort of comprehensive overview email that you'll get from us. The referral email will include a full case file and sort of the first few steps that you will need to take to get started. And then we remain available to you throughout the process. When you have a question or concern or want a strategy call, we are here to support your work because we couldn't accomplish what our clients need accomplished without you. And as I said before, once you accept a case, we'll ask for some status reports. It's a pretty easy online form. And the purpose of these is to make sure that we understand that you're actively working on your case, where you may need assistance, where you might need a little bit of outreach from us, or the client may need additional support getting their records together. It'll be sent in your inbox, and you can also fill it out anytime on our website. I've referenced throughout our conversation today the Volunteer Resource Library. It is a wonderful tool because you can see every recorded training that we have. So if you find yourself looking at a deed and you want to know where to start, you can go to our deed drafting training and sort of watch that or live listen to it as you are drafting your own document. It also has a tremendous amount of templates that are going to be useful throughout your probate representation, and other great resources, sort of self-help guides that you can send to clients if you find that that's going to be useful or necessary. It also allows you to search by topic tag. So you can either select probate resources, or you can type into the keyword search box here, probate timeline, or petition for probate, and find exactly the resource that you're looking for. If you are new to probate, new to Tangled Title and homeownership, we are also happy to support you in working with a mentor. We do have some volunteers who feel comfortable mentoring new volunteers or volunteers new to this topic area. And we are always happy to support you with either a mentor or a volunteer interpreter, or simply connecting with our staff fairly regularly to make sure that you're moving forward confidently in your case. We also have practice groups at several firms. Practice groups are a great resource if you have a couple of colleagues who are interested in working on probate cases, either on teams or sort of each taking your own and touching base, usually once a month. We can send a VIP staff person either in person to your firm practice group meeting, or we can log in on Zoom and sort of just be available to answer questions, field strategy conversations. And if you are working on a case and would like to come into our office in person to work on it, we do have pre-scheduled volunteer workspace availability, either for you to go over documents or to meet with clients if you prefer to use our office space for that. So once you have closed a case, part of the reason we ask you to send a formal closing letter to your client, as well as let us know that you have concluded your representation, is that we have the ability to give up to 3 CLE credits per compliance period, and we award them at 1 credit for each 5 hours of work that you do on a case. All right, so with all of that in mind, the process, the resources, and how we will support and communicate with you. If you are ready to jump into a case, then simply look for outreach from me coming in the next week or so with a case conflicts file for you. If you want to look at the volunteer resource library, of course you have time to do so, or drop into one of our upcoming events. I will flag in particular on November 1st, I am going to be hosting homeownership office hours. You do not have to pre-register, but you can if you want to send me some specific questions that you want me to be ready to review with you at that time. And if that proves useful, then we can either set up periodic meetings to review your case, or future office hours if you would like to just drop in, field questions, connect about your interests. So of course, our hope is that you are ready to say yes, and just look out for a case pitch coming from VIP, or head to our website to review available cases right now. So that is the end of our presentation. I see that some folks are posting messages in the chat. I think we can stop recording now if folks would like to have more open-ended time to ask questions. I know for people who were interested in finding out a little bit more about what volunteering is like, I invited you to stay on after the training has concluded. So feel free to stay on and we can chat if that's you.